So if we weren't going to do a preemptive strike because we wanted the moral authority that came from responding to an attack on us, we at least wanted to be ready to start taking out their ships while they were in port, while they were transiting across the strait. And I think, I mean, the lesson for me is just how costly deterrence failures are. I mean, we've become accustomed to sort of low-intensity conflict over the last 2 decades. If this happens, I mean, a lot of people are going to lose their life, which is why we want deterrence to actually work, and which is why we need hard power in place prior to the conflict breaking out.
You know, Mickey, Cheryl, when I hear some other country has air superiority over anything, we're the United States of America, but obviously we're a lot closer to their mainland there. That was, to me, a surprise that we could not establish air superiority over Taiwan.
Well, certainly, I think what we've been so concerned about on the House Armed Services Committee is the fact that we see China's growing predominance in certain areas and catching up very, very quickly to what had been for decades really presumed superiority in military matters by the United States. And what was so helpful to both of us was to be at the table for this war game, so that when we do make decisions for this country, when we are looking at how we modernize our military and where we strategically use the taxpayer resources that we're given most effectively, that we're thinking about how to really, as Mike said, how to make sure this never happens. How do we make sure that we are able to present such a credible threat across the world that we never actually have to go into a hot war like this?
Bonnie, you were saying one thing we just don't know is what the Chinese, what the Red Team derived the decision-making process was through the writings of the army, of the Chinese army, and you were very, stuck to that script. What do you suspect they are going to take away from Russia's essentially failed attempt to do what the Chinese strategy for your Chinese strategy to do here was, which is to take Taiwan quickly? That was the Russian strategy. It didn't work for them, and it didn't work for the Chinese.
So I think China looks at what Russia is doing in Ukraine, and they don't see the Russian failure as directly applicable to the PLA because of the differences in how Russia invaded Ukraine versus how China plans for Taiwan. So one thing I think China is going to take away is, exactly like what we did with the war game, was China's going to try to move much faster on Taipei, decapitation, and concentrate its forces on Taipei. One other thing that China is taking away is the extent to which Russia's nuclear signaling deterred the United States and NATO from going into Ukraine. So I don't think the Chinese necessarily are confident that nuclear weapons will deter the United States from intervening to help Taiwan.